The gym smelled of sweat, rubber mats, and the faint sting of disinfectant trying to mask it all. Fluorescent lights cast long shadows across the floor, where scattered dumbbells gleamed with condensation. Michael B. Jordan stood by the heavy bag, his old, tattered hoodie hanging loose on his shoulders, frayed threads dangling from the sleeves like memories of countless training sessions. His heart pounded, not from the workout, but from the words that just hit him. Two burly guys, both with close-cropped hair and tattoos peeking from under their tank tops, sauntered closer. One, with a wiry red beard, grinned, but his eyes were cold as ice in a glass. "Yo, man, you crawl out of the hood or what? That hoodie looks like you pulled it from a dumpster. Trying to look street?" His voice caught through the hum of fans and the rhythmic thwack of jump ropes, laced with a mocking edge. The other, thick-necked, veins bulging like ropes, chuckled low, the sound grating like gravel underfoot. Michael's hands froze mid-rap, the cloth rough against his knuckles. A cold sweat prickled his palms. Each laugh from the pair felt like a jab to the ribs, sharp and deliberate. Stay calm, he thought, jaw tightening. Don't give them the reaction they want. His pulse thrummed in his ears, drowning out the gym's clatter. The air felt heavy, pressing against his chest. He caught a whiff of the redhead's cheap cologne, overpowering, like a desperate cover-up. Their eyes bored into him, waiting for a flinch, a crack. Michael forced a slow breath, his gaze steady, but inside, a storm brewed, anger, shame, and the weight of knowing this wasn't new. "You gonna answer, or you just gonna stand there looking lost?" the thick-necked one said, stepping closer, his shadow swallowing the light on the bag. Michael's fingers twitched. He could feel the texture of the leather under his fingertips, the faint grit of dust. Say something or swing. The thought flickered, but he swallowed it, his silence louder than their taunts. Michael lived in a world of contrasts. By day, he navigated the polished halls of a Los Angeles production studio, where he was both a star and a stranger. At night, he returned to this gym, a gritty, no-frills spot in Inglewood where the air was thick with ambition and desperation. His apartment, a modest one-bedroom, was a sanctuary of minimalism, a worn couch, a coffee table stacked with scripts, and a single framed photo of his parents, their smiles warm against the stark walls. The city outside buzzed with traffic, horns blaring, the faint scent of exhaust mixing with street food from nearby trucks. In the studio, Michael was a name, respected, but not always seen. Producers nodded, assistants scurried, but there were always glances, subtle pauses, the unspoken question, does he really belong here? He felt it in the way some executives avoided his gaze or interrupted his pitches with a smile that didn't reach their eyes. At the gym, it was rawer, less veiled. The regulars knew him. Some nodded in respect, others sized him up, their eyes lingering on his skin, his clothes, his presence. He moved through both worlds with a quiet strength, his broad shoulders squared, his walk deliberate. But inside, he wrestled. Why do I have to prove myself twice as hard? The thought gnawed at him, especially on days like today, when the gym felt less like a refuge and more like a battleground. His morning ritual, coffee brewed strong, the bitter aroma filling his kitchen, the feel of the warm mug in his hands, grounded him. But now, as he tightened the wraps around his knuckles, the memory of that routine felt distant. 3 interactions marked his day. At the studio, a producer, Greg, had cut him off mid-sentence during a meeting. "Great idea, Mike, but let's pivot to something safer," Greg said, his tone smooth but patronizing. The room's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, and Michael caught the flicker of a smirk from another exec. He nodded, swallowing the urge to push back, the leather chair cool against his back. Later, at a coffee shop, the barista handed his order to a white customer who'd arrived after him. "Oh, my bad," she muttered, her apology half-hearted. the steam from the espresso machine hissing in the background. Michael smiled tightly, the paper cup burning his fingers. Now, in the gym, the two men loomed. "You deaf or just slow?" the redhead said, his voice louder now, drawing eyes from others nearby. Michael's jaw clenched, the faint taste of salt on his lips from sweat. Not here, not now, he told himself, but the words felt hollow. The taunts didn't stop. Over the next hour, the two men lingered, their comments a steady drip of venom. "Bet you're only here 'cause of quotas," the thick-necked one said, tossing a dumbbell down with a clang that echoed off the concrete walls. "What's next? You gonna rap about your struggle?" The redhead laughed, a sharp, barking sound that cut through the gym's rhythm. Michael kept his focus on the heavy bag, each punch landing with a dull thud, but his hands trembled slightly, the wraps biting into his skin. Others in the gym noticed but stayed silent. A trainer in the corner glanced over, then looked away, wiping down equipment with exaggerated focus. The air conditioner hummed, sending a cold draft across Michael's neck, but it did nothing to cool the heat rising in his chest. "They want me to snap," he thought, his punches growing sharper. "They want me to prove their point." His breath came in short bursts, the smell of rubber and sweat filling his lungs. At one point, the redhead leaned against a nearby rack, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "You know, you don't really fit here, man. Stick to your own spots." The words landed like a slap, their casual cruelty sharper than any punch. Michael's pulse surged, his vision narrowing. He saw the redhead smirk, the glint of a gold chain catching the light, the faint sheen of sweat on his brow. "They don't know me. They don't know what I can do." He wanted to fire back, to let the words spill, sharp, cutting, precise. But he stopped himself, the memory of past confrontations flashing through his mind. Raised voices, accusations of being too sensitive, the inevitable whispers that followed. Instead, he adjusted his stance, his sneakers squeaking against the floor, and threw another punch. The bag swayed, absorbing his rage. Not worth it, he told himself, but the thought felt like surrender. The microaggressions piled up. The thick-necked guy, accidentally, bumped into him, his shoulder heavy, the impact jarring Michael's arm. "My bad," he said, no sincerity in his tone. The air felt thicker now, the gym's noise, clanging weights, grunts, the hum of a treadmill, fading into a dull roar in Michael's ears. He caught his reflection in a cracked mirror across the room, eyes narrowed, jaw set, the faint sheen of sweat on his dark skin. "They see the hoodie, not me." By the end of the session, Michael's knuckles ached, the wraps damp with sweat. The two men had moved to the other side of the gym, their laughter still echoing faintly, but he felt the shift inside himself. Enough was enough. He wasn't invisible, and he wasn't their punching bag, verbal or otherwise. Standing by the water fountain, the cool metal against his palm, he took a slow sip, the water sharp and cold against his throat. "I'm not running from this," he thought, his breath steadying. He replayed the night in his mind, their words, their smirks, the way the gym's air seemed to thicken with every jab. But he also felt the strength in his arms, the years of discipline, the countless hours honing his craft in the ring and on the screen. "They think they know me. They don't." His pulse slowed, a quiet resolve settling in his chest. The gym's lights flickered slightly, casting a soft glow on the concrete floor, and for the first time that night, he felt the weight lift, if only a little. "Same time tomorrow, champ?" the trainer called out, breaking Michael's thoughts. His voice was neutral, but there was a flicker of respect in his eyes. Michael nodded, wiping his brow with the sleeve of his hoodie. "Yeah," he said, his voice low but firm. "I'll be here." As he stepped toward the locker room, the redhead's voice rang out one last time. "Don't forget to wash that rag, man." Michael stopped, his hand tightening on his gym bag. He turned, meeting the redhead's gaze. The gym seemed to hush, the air still, the faint smell of liniment lingering. "Worry about your own gear," Michael said, his tone calm but edged with steel. The redhead blinked, caught off guard, and for a moment, the power shifted. Michael held his stare, his eyes burning with a quiet fire, then turned and walked away. Inside, his heart raced, but his steps were steady. This isn't over. The next day, the gym felt different, colder, sharper, like the edge of a blade. Michael walked in, his hoodie swapped for a fitted black shirt, but the weight of yesterday clung to him. The redhead and his friend were there again, their presence looming like storm clouds. The gym buzzed with its usual rhythm, weights clanging, ropes snapping, but their eyes followed him, tracking every move. At the studio earlier, the tension had been subtler but no less cutting. During a pitch meeting, a new exec, Claire, had dismissed Michael's idea for a project centered on Black resilience. "It's niche," she said, her pen tapping the table, the sound like a metronome marking his frustration. "Maybe tone it down, make it more universal." The word stung, her smile too polished, the room's air conditioning chilling his skin. He'd nodded, but his fingers gripped the armrests, the wood smooth under his palms. Back at the gym, the redhead's voice cut through the noise. "Back for more, huh? Thought you'd skip after yesterday." The comment drew a few glances, the gym's energy shifting. Michael's chest tightened, the familiar burn of anger rising. "They're testing me." He moved to the speed bag, its leather worn and familiar, and started a rhythm, thwop thwop thwop. The sound grounded him, but his mind raced. How many times do I have to prove I belong? Michael decided he was done dodging. Between sets, he approached the trainer, Marcus, a grizzled man with scars on his knuckles and a quiet authority. "You see what's been going on?" Michael asked, keeping his voice low, the hum of the gym muffling their words. Marcus nodded, his eyes flicking toward the two men. "They're loud, but they're cowards. You want to handle it in the ring?" His tone was matter-of-fact, the faint smell of menthol from his liniment lingering. Michael hesitated, the idea sparking something in him. A sparring match, controlled, public, undeniable. Let them see who I am. His heart raced, but not from fear. "Set it up," he said, his voice steady. Marcus raised an eyebrow, then nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Later, Michael confronted the redhead directly. "You got something to say. Say it in the ring," he said, standing close enough to smell the guy's sweat and cologne. The redhead laughed, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "You serious, man? You think you're tough?" Michael didn't blink. "Step up or shut up." The gym's noise seemed to fade, heads turning, the air thick with anticipation. The sparring match was set for the next evening. Word spread fast, and the gym felt electric when Michael arrived. The ring's canvas was scuffed, the ropes sagging slightly, but the lights above cast a stark glow, like a stage for judgment. The redhead, now in gloves and headgear, looked bigger up close, his smirk replaced by a grim focus. His friend stood in his corner, shouting encouragement, his voice hoarse. Michael's hands were steady as he taped them, the adhesive sharp against his skin. This isn't just about them, he thought. It's about me. The crowd gathered, gym rats, trainers, a few curious onlookers. Marcus refereed, his voice calm but firm. "Keep it clean, boys." The bell rang, a sharp clang that cut through the murmurs. Michael moved first, his feet light, his jab snapping out like a whip. The redhead swung wildly, his punches heavy but sloppy. Michael dodged, the air rushing past his face. The crowd shouts a dull roar. Sweat stung his eyes, the taste of salt on his lips. He landed a clean hook to the redhead's ribs, the impact vibrating through his glove. The guy grunted, stumbling back, his eyes wide with surprise. But the redhead wasn't done. He charged, landing a glancing blow to Michael's shoulder, the force jarring. "He's stronger than I thought." Michael's breath hitched, his mind racing. "Stay sharp. Stay you." He countered with a flurry of punches, each one precise, his training taking over. The crowd roared, but he tuned it out, focusing on the redhead's movements, the way his shoulders tensed before a swing. The match ended with no knockout, but Michael's hand was raised. The redhead's face was flushed, his chest heaving, his pride bruised. The gym erupted, but Michael felt a quiet victory, not just in the ring, but in the choice to stand up. "They see me now." The next day, Michael returned to the studio, his knuckles still sore, his resolve stronger. During the morning meeting, Claire brought up the niche project again, her tone dismissive. This time, Michael didn't nod. He leaned forward, the chair creaking under him, the faint scent of coffee lingering in the air. "It's not niche," he said, his voice steady, eyes locked on hers. "It's universal because it's human. You're just not seeing it." The room went quiet, the hum of the air conditioner the only sound. Claire blinked, her pen still. Another exec shifted uncomfortably, the leather of his chair squeaking. Michael kept going, laying out his vision with a clarity that silenced doubts. His words were measured, but his presence filled the room, the same quiet power he'd brought to the ring. The response wasn't immediate. Claire nodded curtly, but later she pulled him aside, her tone softer. "I didn't get it before," she admitted, her eyes meeting his for the first time without a barrier. "Let's talk more." It wasn't a full victory, but it was a crack in the wall. Back at the gym, Marcus clapped him on the shoulder, the respect in his eyes unmistakable. Even the redhead avoided him now, his taunts silenced, his friend nowhere in sight. Michael felt the shift, not just in others, but in himself. The weight of constant proving hadn't vanished, but it was lighter. He walked home that night, the LA air cool, the city's hum a backdrop to his thoughts. "I'm not invisible anymore." The victory wasn't loud, but it was his. The twist came a week later. Michael found a note slipped under his apartment door, handwritten and signed. "Saw you in the ring. You didn't just fight him, you fought all of us. Keep going." The paper was creased, the ink slightly smudged, as if written in a hurry. He stood in his dimly lit hallway, the faint scent of the city drifting through an open window, and read it again. "All of us." The words lingered, a quiet acknowledgement from someone who'd watched in silence, someone who'd seen his struggle and his strength. He never found out who wrote it. It could have been the trainer, a bystander, even the redhead's friend. But it didn't matter. The note was a mirror, reflecting not just his fight, but the countless others he'd face. He tucked it into his pocket, the paper soft against his fingers, and stepped onto his balcony. The city stretched out below, lights flickering like stars, the air alive with possibility. He wasn't done fighting, not for his place, his voice, or his dignity. And that was enough.